Check.
She was working on the higher budget. Nope, I was supposed to be bored as well. I'm glad.
You gotta sign in, man. Bridget, right there, yeah.
Mr. Weston. How are you, buddy?
Not too bad.
Good. I'm still. Yeah. You know,
The other decision for yesterday. About started off with one and cross the line. I think. Looking for all kinds
Oh, yeah. Yes.
One is us.
Okay. Just one person. Okay. Thank you.
But you can see that count the whole time.
I just need the end count.
Good morning. I call this meeting to order.
Mr. Valier? Here. Mr. Hollenbeck? Here. Mr. Manel? Mr. Mullen? Mr. Roberts? Mrs. Sauerbrei?
Here.
Mr. Staninger? Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Weston? Okay, I'll read a legal notice that was posted in the designated Tioga County newspapers. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing on the tentative budget for Tioga County for the fiscal year 2021 will be held on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 9:30 a.m. in the Edward D. Hubbard Auditorium of the Ronald D. Doherty County Office Building, 56 Main Street, Owego, New York. Copies of the tentative budget on which this hearing will be held will be available on November 10th, 2020 at the office of the clerk of the Tioga County Legislature.
The proposed tentative county budget for 2021. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, several budget, including major revenue losses in sales tax, occupancy tax, gaming revenues, and the looming threat of state aid cuts. In response, Tioga County has implemented a COVID-19 financial response plan, which executed a 10% reduction of all non-salary or mandated service expenditures from the 2020 budget, training and travel restrictions, a review of capital expenditures, and a temporary hiring freeze. Furthermore, the 2021 budget has taken the potential losses of revenue into account and implemented another 10% reduction to all non-salary and mandated service expenditures. These efforts were crucial to ensure a balanced budget for 2021. Nevertheless, the impact of COVID-19 will be felt for many more years to come. 2021's budget process was met with familiar challenges, including the unfunded and underfunded mandated services, which continue to further shift costs to all New York counties. In 2020, a directive came to light from Albany that suggested municipalities may see a 20% cut from state aid in reaction to COVID-19. Many of the requests for state aid are directly associated with mandated services. Additionally, sales tax, which is one of the largest revenue sources for the county, not only saw a reduction in 2020 due to COVID-19, but sales tax received by the county also continues to be reduced by AIM funding that was previously paid under to municipalities by the state. Beginning in 2021, sales tax will also be impacted by another state mandate requiring at least $150,000 to be withheld for distressed hospitals and nursing homes. This order will continue into 2022. County department heads and employees continue to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, diligently looking for cost-saving measures and advocating for additional revenue sources and economic growth. The 2021 budget maintains all current county programs and services provided to its citizens with the exception of curbside recycling. Starting in 2021, due to an unanticipated increase in the cost of curbside recycling, Tioga County will no longer provide the curbside recycling service. The county will continue to provide the following recycling services: recycling drop-off sites, hazardous waste, and e-waste disposal, as well as community outreach. Services are to be absorbed into the general operating fund. If any citizen has questions regarding the changes to the recycling service, please contact Ellen Pratt, Sustainability Manager for Tioga County. The total tentative budgeted appropriations for 2021 are $82,866,808. In 2020, the total budgeted appropriations were $86,200,968,000. This is a decrease of $3,334,161, or 3.87%. The total tentative anticipated revenues for 2021 are $52,597,340. In 2020, the total anticipated revenues were $58,599,043. This is a decrease of anticipated revenues of $5,961,704, or 10.18%. The decrease in expenditures of $3.3 million is brought on by a combination of salary reductions through attrition, across-the-board departmental budget cuts in anticipation of the continued state aid and revenue losses, a large reduction in the amount of capital expenditures for 2021, as well as the ending of the curbside recycling program. The decrease in anticipated revenues of nearly $5.9 million is due to a combination of sales tax loss, estimated at 10%, interest and fee reductions, gaming revenue reductions, and an anticipated state loss of 20%, estimated in the 2021 budget of $2 million. The total tax levy for 2021 shall be $24,948,721, compared to the 2020 tax levy of $24,654,109. This is an increase of $294,612, or 1.19%. 2021 will mark the 10th consecutive budget year that Tioga County has stayed under the state-imposed property tax cap. The 10-year average increase in the tax levy has been approximately 1.69% each year. The combined composite tax rate is $8.61 per $1,000 of taxable value. The average assessed $100,000 home will pay approximately $861 in county tax. Tax rates will vary from town to town due to the state-established equalization rates and the town's apportionment percent. The combined composite tax rate includes which may also further impact those rates. The total budget deficit gap is estimated at $30,269,469. After applying the 2021 tax levy of $24,948,721, I propose using $5,320,747 of both fund balance and fund balance reserves to balance the 2021 budget. In the preparation of the 2021 budget, I would like to thank all department heads and county employees for their participation in the budget process. I would like to especially thank the following Tioga County employees for their time and efforts: Terry Hughesby, the Real Property Director; Bethany O'Rourke, Personnel Officer; Amy Poff, Benefits Manager; Katie Chandler, Deputy Treasurer; Stephanie Jerzak, Chief Accountant; James McFadden, County Treasurer; and Drew Griffin, Deputy IT Director. I would like to also thank the Tioga County Legislature for their continued strength and leadership in these uncertain times, and especially Kathy Haskell, Legislative Clerk, and Legislative Chair Martha Sauerbrey for their unrelenting support and assistance throughout the 2021 budget process. The proposed tax levy cannot be increased after today's hearing without an additional public hearing. Following the presentation of the 2021 budget brief, the floor will be open for comments to the legislature. Present to you now the Tioga County 2021 tentative budget brief. This is a synopsis of the 2021 budget. Starting with, we have the Tioga County budget directives. These are 4 directives that are in place for all departments to follow throughout the budget process. Directive 1 is the operating budget. Departments were instructed to maintain a 0% increase to any expenditure without legislative approval. And there was also, in relation to COVID-19, a further 10% reduction of 2020 original budgeted amounts. Directive 2 for new positions. There are no new positions to be added for 2021 budget to the 2021 budget without legislative approval. And position and title changes require personnel and legislative review. Directive 3 is in regards to the capital budget. All capital requests are to be included in a reviewed 5-year plan, and the capital budget and 5-year plans are to be reviewed by the legislature annually. Directive 4 is for budget presentation and review. It states all budgets are to be reviewed by the appropriate legislative committee. The next slide is a tentative budget fact sheet. All 2021 state aid has been budgeted at 80% of the original anticipated totals. 2021 anticipated sales tax has been budgeted at 90% of the 2020 original anticipated amount. 2019 fiscal stress monitoring stress level has no designation and no indication of a stress level for the county. Tioga County remains under the 2% tax cap for the 10th consecutive year in a row. Tioga County remains in compliance with its fund balance policy. All 2020 programs are to be continued into 2021 with the exception of curbside recycling. Tax will incur a sales tax reduction of approximately 96% of the total tax levy. The next slide illustrates tentative appropriations or expenditures for the county. Showing 2020 adopted versus 2021 tentative. The total appropriations show $86,200,968 for 2020 versus the 2021 appropriations of $82,866,808. This is a decrease of $3,334,160 or 3.87%. This slide breaks down the appropriations by funds for the county. The next slide breaks down the objects of expense from personal services, capital equipment, interdepartmental, contractual, debt principal, debt interest, employee benefits, and interfund transfers. Again, the 2020 total was 86,200,968 versus 2021 of 82,866,808, the reduction of the $3.3 million. Contractual expenditures through the budget process were able to be reduced by 2.7 million, but employee benefits, as you can see, due to increases in health insurance and pension benefits, have gone up almost $600,000 for the 2021 budget. The next slide is the pie chart that shows the function of governments. This illustrates the percentage of the expense for each function. Each function has this illustrates the impact that each function has to the entire budget. Public safety has an average of 17%, economic assistance makes up 32%, and general government support makes up 20% of the entire budget. The next slide illustrates some of the top costs incurred by the county from 2021 and 2020. One of the primary largest costs has been salaries, just well over $20 million, followed by health insurance, which continues to go up, distributions, pension, bonds, and college tuition. The next slide illustrates outside agency funding from 2020 to 2021. Outside agencies provide services, support, and culture and arts to Tioga County. Outside agency funding totals $910,481 for 2020. Outside agencies were instructed that a 10% minimum cut related to the COVID-19 pandemic would be applied to their funding, which is reflected in the percentage from year to year, and resulted in a reduction of $138,881 for 2021. For state mandated services, this is a breakdown of several of the major mandated services Tioga County is enforced to provide by New York State. Mandated services plague all New York counties, and that the state may choose to reduce or eliminate funding for programs the county is mandated to provide. As a result, many programs continue to go under or completely unfunded. Medicaid, being one of the largest mandated services, makes up nearly 30% of the entire $24,948,721 tax levy. All mandated services make up approximately 96% of the total tax levy. Recent mandated services have targeted county sales tax revenue, reducing the amount received by the county and ultimately the portion passed to towns and villages. Examples of these reductions include AIM-related payments and the new distressed hospitals and nursing home related funding, which has an anticipated reduction of $150,000 for 2021 and will continue into 2022. In an effort to combat the negative financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, Tioga County has reviewed its capital budget very carefully and made several large reductions for the 2021 budget. The total capital budget for 2021 includes a $2.8 million in appropriations and $1.8 million in anticipated revenues, which include sales tax, CHIPS funding, and state and federal aid sources. Approximately $969,000 will be appropriated from capital reserves or capital fund balance. The largest projects include paving projects, which are primarily funded through the CHIPS funding, vehicle upgrades, voting machine upgrades, and a jail security system upgrade. The next slide is the current year adopted versus the 2021 for estimated revenues, broken out by fund. The total revenues for the funds for 2021 are $52,597,339 of estimated revenue. 2020 was $58,559,043, a decrease of $5,961,700. After applying for 2021, the surplus of $5,320,747, as well as the real property tax levy of $24,948,721. Total estimated revenues for 2021 are $82,866,808. This balances the total revenues against the expenditures for the budget. The next slide breaks out the revenue by objects of revenue, including personal services, interest income and charges, state aid, federal aid, and interfund transfers. You can see large reductions in personal services of 2.2 million and state aid of 2.7 million. This accounts for the majority of the estimated impact of loss of revenue for 2021 of $5,667,092, a decrease of 6.81%. The next slide breaks out some of the major funding streams for Tioga County, including real property taxes, sales tax, pilots receivable, occupancy tax, departmental fees, interest income and charges, state aid, casino revenue, federal aid, and interfund transfers. The total reduction also equates to the reduction of the 5.6 million or 6.81%. Real property tax increased by only 1.19%, while sales tax, occupancy tax, and state aid are all budgeted with at least an anticipated 10% reduction. Casino revenue was reduced drastically by the unknown future impact of COVID-19. This chart breaks out the funding streams based on their origin. You can see sales tax and real property tax make up a majority of the funding streams and make up more than half of the revenue for the entire county. Sales tax encompasses 27% of revenue, and real property tax is 32%. The next slide shows sales tax trends for the past several years. The original budget versus what's actual. Sales tax has been budgeted very conservatively as an unknown revenue source. You can see that the budget line is underneath, and the actual 2019, there were large surplus years, but now with 2020 projected, you can see it crosses over and has reduced significantly. The next slide is a budget summary by all funds. Total appropriations of $82,866,808 with estimated revenues of $52,597,339 leave a budget gap of $30,269,469, supplemented with a tax levy of $24,948,721. This leaves the county with a deficit of $5,320,747. The legislature has authorized the deficit to be supplemented with fund balance and/or reserve funds to make up for the difference and balance the tentative budget for 2021. While a majority of the deficit is directly related to the effects of COVID-19 and the government mandated shutdowns, the use of fund balance is not reliable for sustainability. This will prevent large future challenges to the county budget for the years to come. This is a 7-year budget analysis showing from 2015 to 2021. Total appropriations, estimated revenue, the budget gap, the appropriated amount of fund balance, and the tax levy. The 7-year average for total appropriations and estimated revenues are $81,168,855 and $52,630,641 respectively. The next slide lists some of the future challenges that we can expect with the budget process for Tioga County. One of the most important future challenges is maintaining current county services. Continued increases in costs of mandated services without additional funding, salary and fringe increases, losses of state aid, and other revenues make the continued challenge of maintaining current county services all the more difficult. Should these trends continue, it's likely that some county services may be in danger of continuation. Managing reductions to state and federal aid is another large future challenge, as we're seeing the impact of that now with COVID-19 and where that will go in the future. Advocating for mandate relief to New York State is a constant battle to see what they'll continue to get funding. Maintaining and possibly creating new revenue sources to maintain the reductions in revenue. Maintaining support to outside agencies. Maintaining sales tax distributions to towns and villages. Meeting the continual capital equipment needs and communications upgrades, and updating a shared services plan and continuing to follow that path for shared services. There's areas of limited control and state mandated services and employee benefits. Tax cap limitations also affecting increasing the budgetary gap year to year. This slide shows the 10-year tax levy percent from 2012 to 2021. There's a 10-year average of 1.69%. In several years, the tax levy was implemented lower as to what was allowed, and this created for an amount of rollover, which saved taxpayers well over $1 million in the tax levy. By remaining under the 2% tax cap, rebates have been allowed to citizens in the past years, and remaining under the tax cap also ensures continuing to raise the age funding. The next slide shows the tax levy percent for the past 7 years from 2015 to 2021. See, in 2020, the tax levy allowable growth was 2.16%, and 2021 is 1.19. The next slide breaks out the total apportionments for the municipalities within the county, having their 2021 total taxable equalized value versus their 2021 total equalized value, and showing an increase or decrease. Changes in the Spencer assessment have increased the taxable value by $165,701,180, with the equalization rate in the blue and then the apportionment percentage broken out. The apportionment percentage applied to the total taxable equalized value equates to the levy dollars to be raised by that municipality in the far right column. So Owego, for example, the total amount that their impact of the Tioga County tax levy will be $10,898,717. Equalization rates remain consistent year to year, and the total taxable assessment for 2021 is $2,896,537 and $22 billion of assessed value. The next slide is an apportionment pie chart. It shows each municipality and the impact of their assessed value and what percentage they have of apportionment. Owego makes up 44%, Nichols 5%, Newark Valley 6%, Candor 10%, Barton 15%, Tioga 9%, Spencer 6%, and Richford 2%. The next slide breaks down some of the exemptions. 26.42% of the total value of all properties are exempt from property taxes within the county. This is down slightly from 2020. A majority of the exempt parcels include industrial development agency projects and publicly owned school districts, towns, and villages. This pie chart illustrates the full impact of the exemptions with the total county value. Again, you can see the exemptions make up nearly 25% of the assessed value for the county. The next slides break down the county tax rate by town based on the equalization from 2020 to 2021, and then the percentage change over to the side. This is for the last 10 years. And this is based on $1,000 of taxable value. Again, the increase in the total tax levy is $291,000, or 1.19%. The next slide shows the composite tax rate over the past 7 years. Last year's composite tax rate of $9.03 per $1,000 compared to this year's $8.61 per $1,000. Which makes the average $100,000 home in Tioga County, their estimated approximate county tax will be $861. This concludes the budget brief for 2021.
Thank you, Jackson, very nice. So we have, now is the time for public comment, so you can be seated. And we have two people that signed up. First was Daniel Sneezek, for privilege of the floor.
Thank you.
And you live,
Yeah. Up until
I don't want to take too much of your time because I like to use most of my time to Max over there, but I'd like you to reconsider the recycling.
you speak a little louder.
Reconsider the recycling, and there might be some other options you might want to look at. Okay.
Next, we have Max Delapierre, and he's from Larchmont Road in Wisdom.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and councilmen or legislators. Thank you for this opportunity to comment. I recognize the difficulty of facing unfunded mandates and trying to meet a budget with a lot of uncertainty. And I applaud you for continuing to be fiscally responsible as a group. What I'd like to do, if there's no objection, I'd like to read a very brief resolution. I'm not attempting to politicize the recycling issue, but merely offer some suggestions for how it might be done without impacting the county budget, but allowing users to pay for the recycling. I think you'd all agree that the convenience of having curbside pickup is preferable in the sense of compliance with recycling, but it does have a cost, and the cost is going up, and I recognize that, as well as the challenges you face for the budget. Whereas New York state law requires its citizens to not send recyclable materials to the landfill, and whereas Tioga County has provided curbside recycling pickup since 1992, the cost of which was included in property tax bills, and whereas the Tioga County Legislature very quickly moved to end this service, leaving each citizen on his or her own to deal with recycling, and whereas a petition for the Tioga County Legislature to not take this action drew almost 2,000 signatures in a very short time, and whereas James King wrote a guest editorial on October 4th in the Owego Penny Saver outlining two alternative means to continue curbside service. Those alternatives are to use municipal law to create a special taxing district or county law district. Such districts as sewer, lighting, and water districts already exist in the county, and whereas Legislator Sullivan complained that expanding the cost of current recycling program would have a big impact on the, quote, ag folks. Either plan mentioned above could be based on user fees instead of property taxes, so no who use this service would, so that even non-property holders who use this service would share the cost. Therefore, be it resolved, the Tioga County Democratic Committee advocates that alternative programs be explored to provide recycling service to the citizens of Tioga County. This is a difficult problem, but it is resolvable with some exploration of some alternatives. And I would urge you to do that, to review it, to carefully evaluate it, and then readdress this, because I suspect that, like many members of our county, once January comes around and those red containers are sitting out at the curb without anybody to pick them up, they're going to realize that we're not going to be doing what we can to recycle and respect the state law that requires us not to put this stuff in landfills. I thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And thank you for the privilege of addressing the group. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no more public comments, so I close the public hearing.